Gutenberg's team was growing. Besides the carpenter Zaspach, he'd recruited other craftsmen from the Strasbourg guilds and set them to work at his new premises. Not in the city itself, but in a hamlet downstream, far away from the prying eyes of potential competitors.
Why the secrecy? Why was it necessary?
There were a number of people working in this area trying to solve this problem. If only they could come up with a printed word for the church, they would have their fortunes made. So he had to keep it as a secret, otherwise everybody else would be doing it.
Yeah.
Whilst they worked in secret on the printing press, they needed a second revenue stream to keep the wolf from the door.
Lo and behold, fate brought to Gutenberg a brilliant idea. This was the creation of mirrors for pilgrims coming to the pilgrimage at Aachen.
Why was Aachen important?
Aachen was important because there was a cathedral there, and in the cathedral were relics directly descending from Christ, supposedly. And they were on display every 4 years, and pilgrims would come from all over Europe to see the relics and receive the rays of healing that emanated from them. And eventually there were so many pilgrims that they couldn't all get close to the relics. So the idea came into existence that there should be some way of capturing these rays. And the rays were captured by a concave metal mirror, which would be held up so that it was some sort of a satellite dish capturing radiation. Local makers could not keep up with the demand. Gutenberg's idea was that if he could mix his metal right, he could use the presses that were in development to print out mirrors which could be sold to the pilgrims at Aachen.
It looked like a surefire winner, but in 15th century Europe there was one thing which could usually be relied on to scupper the best-laid business plan.
Black Death strikes again, and the pilgrimage is put off.
Right, they would postpone a pilgrimage.
Yes.
For the plague.
Could not, I mean, it would be a real disaster if you had 100,000 people all gathered together and you got a plague.
So that means that all the investors have been hoping for the money to come to them back. Yeah, we're going to have to...
Yes, one of the partners died. The partnership began to collapse, leaving Gutenberg not exactly in the lurch, but struggling.
This setback would have deterred a lesser man, but by now Gutenberg must have been completely possessed by his plan, so the work continued.
So, Gutenberg Island. And there's a statue of him with the fish on his face again.
No one knows exactly where his workshop was, but it must have been somewhere near here. He'd chosen a secluded base to protect himself from the threat of industrial espionage. But there was another reason for being close to the water, because Gutenberg was playing with fire. Do you remember my John Bull printing set and those rubber pieces of type? Gutenberg's plan would only succeed if he could devise a system for mass-producing individual letters which could be set and reset in any order. He went to the Guild of Goldsmiths and found a man called Hans Dunn. Together, they made the crucial technical breakthrough which made Gutenberg's brilliant idea a practical proposition.
So this is a type foundry that you've created.
This table is, believe it or not, a complete foundry.
Right.
I've asked Stan to help me make a piece of type, a single letter E, which I can use in our grand printing experiment. For the sake of authenticity, I want my letter to match the dimensions of the original font used in the Gutenberg Bible. First, we have to make a punch, a master copy of the letter we want to reproduce. After we've transferred its outline onto the tip of this steel bar, it has to be carved by hand using a file, a very sharp file.
You do maybe a punch day, 2 punches a day?
So, in order to do the full set of type that Gutenberg needed for his Bible, how much work was that?
Well, there are at least 270 characters, perhaps more. So, you know, given that a lot of holidays, I would imagine close to the better part of a year.
A year. So if you were one of those people that invested in this new technology, you'd be getting rather impatient. You'd be saying, now, Mr. Gutenberg, do you really need 8 different E's?
Yeah.
And the reason he needed different ones was obviously because it was a very elegant and harmonious look he was after. He wanted absolutely top quality, so he wanted some that were slightly wider, some that were slightly narrower, so that he could always have justified lines.
Correct.
Without trailing white space and
Exactly.
sort of ugly,
Yeah.
you know, bad compositing things.
This is a smoke proof, a way of checking that our punch is an accurate copy of the letter we want to replicate. It looks spot on. Now, how clever is that?
So here we have it. It's hand carved and grooved and shaved and emeryed and rasped and shaped and hardened and tempered. And now that is the key that unlocks the technology that changes the world. The punch. Beautiful. And we made it. But what's the next stage?
Well, we have to strike a matrix with that.
Strike a matrix.
Yeah, we're going to hammer that punch straight into that piece of copper.
So it will leave an impress of the letter shape.
Absolutely.
The experts can't agree about how exactly Gutenberg cast letters from his molds, but Stan's theory is the most commonly accepted one. He thinks he invented something like this ingenious device.
This tool in front of us is the single unique element of Gutenberg's invention. And this is the type mold. And it's made of two halves. Yeah. And these two halves mate together to form a cavity in which the type will be formed with the matrix at the bottom. That's
this
where the
precious matrix.
Yes, we've been working. And so these two halves are beautifully fitted. And because they make either a narrow or a wide opening, by placing this matrix beneath the mold, which we've carefully formed, and closing the mold on the matrix and using the spring to keep it in place, that's what this silly thing is, now there's a hollow inside of this mold that's the shape of the letter we're going to form.
Okay.
Isn't that neat?
And
it's quite a unique part of the invention. There was nothing else like this before Gutenberg.
Right.
So we're going to pour molten metal here, lead, tin, and antimony, straight away in there.
Yeah.
And it hardens instantly. It's already hard.
Really?
Yeah. So we take the spring out of the way, we release the matrix by pressing on it, we pry the mold open, and there's a piece of type.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that marvelous?
So which bit is the type? Oh.
Well, there's the face we formed.
Oh my goodness.
And it's an exact
There's
duplicate.
The E. Yeah.
And if you look at the punch we have here, you'll see that that punch is replicated on the face.
Yes, it's identical
of the
because
type.
it's back to its...
It's back to its form. See, isn't that neat?
It's more than neat, it's revolutionary. Because now we can make as many E's as we want, quickly and cheaply. I wonder how many it takes to print a full Bible.
Look what I did. I made an E. Well, they seem like the components of the greatest revolution in humankind since the invention of fire. Yet you could argue they certainly are, and one of the reasons is that they're identical. It's an extraordinary thing, such ingenuity, using arts and crafts that have been known for some hundreds of years, but adding to it this unique little device that just enabled printers all over Europe to start spreading the word.
I've heard great reports about Alan's progress with the press, so I've returned to base to help him put together the finished article. If you've ever had a traumatic experience with a self-assembly wardrobe, now might be a good time to make a cup of tea.
It's like those cereal packets, slot A into tab B or whatever it is.
That's right. No, I'm going to get to pull it up.
I feel like Atlas.
Wait,
Get your wedge. I'll give you a variety.
Bring the whole box over.
Oh, that's much more sensible.
Right, now you use your mallet to tap the...
Don't do that, Stephen.
I'll hold it, you don't kick it. Good sound effects, haven't we?
We're getting good creaks. I suppose, Alan, really, no one has done anything like this for 500 years.
That's absolutely right on this sort of press. That's it. That's what.
Good. Such an art. Honestly, I would never have made a Boy Scout. Hopeless.